Imagine a 10-year-old wandering dark streets alone before dawn, or an 11-year-old left entirely alone overnight. In the 1980s, this wasn't neglect, it was Tuesday. But today, those same parents would face serious child endangerment charges. The 80s were a wild era of peak freedom, where families trusted survival instincts over warning labels. We used harsh chemicals on cuts, bought strong stimulants at grocery stores, and carried items to school that would spark instant panic today. Here are 10 completely normal 1980s habits that are now considered illegal. Kids delivering newspapers before sunrise. The alarm clock flashes 4:45 a.m., and a 10-year-old is already pedaling through dark streets with a heavy newspaper bag bouncing against the bike tire. In the 1980s, this was completely normal. Kids delivered papers before school, managed entire routes alone, collected payment from strangers, and learned responsibility long before adulthood. Parents rarely followed behind or checked every corner because independence was expected early. Neighbors simply trusted children to handle themselves. Today, the idea of a child roaming neighborhoods alone before sunrise feels almost shocking, which reveals how much American childhood has changed. Back then, freedom came first and safety concerns came later. Kids were expected to grow up by doing real things in the real world, not by being constantly supervised. And once you understand how much trust families placed in children during the 80s, the next part of daily life starts to make even more sense. Leaving children home alone for long stretches. The front door shuts, the family car pulls away, and suddenly an 11-year-old is alone in a quiet house until nighttime. In the 1980s, that scene happened everywhere in America. Kids came home after school, made snacks, watched television, answered the phone carefully, and followed one simple rule: do not cause problems before your parents get home. Some children were even left alone overnight without neighbors thinking much about it. Parents believed responsibility came from trust, not constant supervision. Today, the same situation would make many adults deeply uncomfortable almost immediately, which shows how dramatically the culture shifted. Back then, children were expected to handle themselves earlier, and neighborhoods were assumed to be safe enough for families to rely on personal judgment instead of strict rules. That same relaxed attitude toward risk also appeared in places where modern Americans would least expect it. Mercury-based on scrapes and cuts. A scraped knee hits the kitchen sink, and seconds later that bright red liquid is painted across the skin while a child winces from the sting. In the 1980s, bottles of mercury sat inside medicine cabinets all across America. Parents used it automatically on cuts, scrapes, and bike accidents without thinking much beyond whether the wound would heal by tomorrow. Kids mostly remembered the color staining their skin bright red for days afterward. What families did not fully understand then was that the product contained mercury, something heavily restricted today because of long-term health concerns. But during the 80s, it was treated as just another normal household item, trusted simply because everyone used it. That says a lot about how Americans once viewed safety. If a product was common, it was assumed to be harmless. And medicine cabinets were far from the only place hidden risks quietly existed. Leaded gasoline at every station. The gas pump clicks loudly, fumes drift through the air, and nobody thinks twice while filling the family car with leaded gasoline. During the 1980s, millions of Americans used leaded fuel as part of ordinary life. Parents pumped gas, kids sat in the backseat breathing the smell, and the entire system ran with little public discussion about what those chemicals were actually doing to human health. At the time, convenience and performance mattered more than invisible long-term risks most people could not even see. Today, leaded gasoline is banned in most places because of the serious environmental and neurological damage linked to lead exposure. But back then, it was simply normal. That contrast captures something important about the decade. Industries moved faster than public awareness, and many dangers stayed hidden in plain sight for years. And some of the biggest hidden dangers were waiting much closer to home. Lead paint and asbestos in everyday objects. Children in the 1980s grew up in homes where paint chipped from windowsills, ceilings flaked quietly into the air, and nobody stopped to wonder what those materials contained. Lead paint still existed in older houses across America. while asbestos could appear in insulation, toys, school materials, and even craft products families used every day. Most people never questioned it because warning labels were rare and the dangers were not widely understood yet. Kids touched walls, played on floors, and handled household objects without adults imagining long-term health consequences hiding underneath ordinary life. Today, both lead and asbestos are heavily restricted because of the serious illnesses linked to exposure. But during the 80s, these substances blended invisibly into everyday routines. That reality reveals how much trust Americans once placed in products simply because they were common and convenient. And when it came to child safety, that same mindset appeared almost everywhere else too. Baby carriers with dangerous hanging hooks. A parent lifts a hard plastic baby carrier into the backseat, hooks it loosely over the car seat, and drives away without hearing a single warning alarm. In the 1980s, early infant carriers were often little more than plastic baskets with thin metal hooks designed for convenience instead of real crash protection. Parents trusted them because they were sold in stores, used by neighbors, and recommended as practical solutions for busy families. Seatbelt laws were looser, safety testing was far less advanced, and many adults simply assumed babies would be fine as long as they stayed in place. Today, those same carriers would fail modern safety standards almost immediately. That difference shows how much child protection changed over the decades. In the 80s, convenience and trust often came before engineering and regulation. And once you stepped outside the house, everyday neighborhood life felt even less restricted. Burning trash and leaves in the backyard. The smell of smoke drifts across the neighborhood while piles of leaves crackle behind somebody's fence on a quiet Saturday afternoon. During the 1980s, families across suburban and rural America regularly burned trash, branches, and yard waste in their own backyards. Kids rode bicycles through smoky streets, while adults treated it as a completely ordinary way to clean up the property. Few people worried much about air pollution, fire hazards, or toxic fumes because handling your own waste was considered part of taking care of your home. Today, many towns heavily restrict or ban open burning altogether. But back then, it blended naturally into neighborhood life, especially during autumn cleanup weekends. That contrast reflects a time when Americans expected fewer rules about what families could do on their own property. And some of the decade's strangest freedoms appeared in products sold directly to children themselves. High-powered laser toys with no protection. A child clicks a shiny new laser toy, and suddenly a bright red beam is flashing across bedroom walls, mirrors, and sometimes directly into someone's eyes. In the 1980s and early 1990s, powerful laser gadgets were sold as exciting futuristic toys with very little concern about eye safety. Kids treated them like harmless science fiction accessories, aiming them around classrooms, neighborhoods, and shopping malls without understanding the permanent damage strong beams could cause. Warning labels were limited, regulations were weaker, and novelty usually mattered more than caution whenever something looked modern and high-tech. Today, laser products face far stricter safety rules and labeling requirements. But during the 1980s, the excitement of new technology often outran public awareness about the risks involved. That pattern appeared everywhere throughout the decade. Even products marketed for beauty and weight loss carried hidden dangers most consumers barely questioned at all. Diet pills with strong stimulants sold openly. Television commercials promised fast weight loss, endless energy, and a better body, all packed inside a tiny bottle sitting openly on store shelves. In the 1980s, diet pills containing powerful stimulants were marketed aggressively across America, especially toward women pressured by impossible beauty standards. Many people bought them believing they were safe simply because they were advertised everywhere and sold so casually. The side effects, however, could include dangerous heart problems, anxiety, and serious long-term health risks that became harder to ignore over time. Today, many of those ingredients are tightly controlled or banned altogether. But so many things felt normal back then, not because they were truly safe, but because millions of people were doing them together without stopping to question it yet. The 1980s operated on a simple kind of logic: if something was common, familiar, and everyone around you seemed fine with it, most people accepted it without much question. Families trusted experience, routines, and personal judgment far more than warning labels or regulations. Today, daily life runs very differently. Products are tested more carefully, risks are studied more openly, and many things are restricted long before they ever become normal habits. Neither era saw itself as unusual while it was happening. But looking back now, it becomes clear how much a society can change simply through the things people stop noticing and the things they finally begin to question.